The Midnight Folk. It had been an unhappy day for little Kay Harker. To begin with, at breakfast time, the governess had received a letter from his guardian, Sir Theopompus, the chemical powder merchant, to say that he would be there for lunch, but would like lunch at 2 p.m, as the trains did not suit. This made the governess cross, or as she called it, put out. On giving the order to Jane, the cook, for a very good lunch at 2 o'clock instead of 1, Jane was put out, for it was her afternoon off, and she did not like to be put upon. Ellen, the maid, was also put out, because if you have lunch so late, it's tea time before you finished washing up. Jane and Ellen, between them, put the governess much further out. And then it was lesson time. Divinity, French, history, and Latin. Divinity was easy, as it was about Noah's Ark. French was fairly easy, as it was about the cats of the daughter of the gardener. History was not at all easy, as it was all about beastly Odo. He longed for Odo to come into the room, saying, "I'm Odo," so that he could jolly well shut him up with, "Well, oh, don't." He got napped on the knuckles rather tartly over history. Then came Latin. That morning it was all adjectives, especially a rather loathsome adjective called acur, acris, acray, sharp or piercing. It was that put him out. It came right at the end of lessons. That was the worst of it. As he was longing to be out of doors, he was always looking out of the window, watching the pigeons. He had to repeat acur line by line in a sort of catechism. The governess: "What is sharp?" K. Acur. The governess: "Feminine?" K. Acris. The governess: "Neuter?" K. Acray. The governess: "Now the nominative, all genders." K. Acur, acris, acray. The governess: "Meaning?" K. Sharp. The governess: "Or? What else can it mean?" K. Piercing. The governess: "Accusative?" K. Acrem, acris, acray. Here the governess scowled rather, and would not say if he were right. Instead she said, "Genitive?" But how was he to leap at the genitive when he could not tell if his taking off point, the accusative, was sound? Besides, had it a genitive? Could you say of sharp? What would be the genitive? Could it be a cry, a cree, a cree? That didn't sound right. What did sound right? Not quite acrorum, acrarum, acrorum. "Well," the governess said, "what is the genitive?" "Acrostic, acrostic, acrostic." "What? A crumpet, a crumpet, a crumpet?" "You're a very idle, impertinent little boy," the governess said. "You will write it all out 5 times, and I shall tell your guardian, Sir Theopompus, when he comes. Now go and have your milk, but not your biscuit. You haven't deserved one. And mind you come to lunch with washed hands." The governess's Christian names were Sylvia and Daisy. Kay had read a poem about Sylvia, and had decided that it was not swains who commended this one, but Mrs. Tattle and Mrs. Gossip. He loved daisies, because the closer one looked at them, the more beautiful they seemed. Yet this daisy was like a rhododendron. She was big, handsome, and with something of a flaunting manner, which turned into a flounce when she was put out. She left the schoolroom with something of a flounce after passing this sentence about the no biscuit with his milk. He had had his biscuit stopped before, more than once. He had invented a dodge for making up for the loss of biscuit. He used to go to the kitchen cupboard, where the raisins were kept, and get a handful of raisins instead. Ellen was his devoted friend, and Jane thought that raisins were very good for him. But this morning, alas, things had gone badly in the house, and Ellen and Jane were cross. When he put his hand into the blue paper bag for the raisins, Jane stopped him. "Now, Master Kay," she said, "you put down those raisins, or I shall tell your governess about you. You go taking those raisins, and then it's put down to me. You've got plenty of good plain food without going stuffing yourself. That's how little boys get a stoppage, and I don't want you bothering about in my kitchen when I'm as busy as I am. I put your milk in the dining room long ago." There was nothing for it but to go. In the dining room, another trouble showed. There, on the sideboard, with his head in the tumbler of milk, which was tilted so that he was lapping the last remnants of it, was Black Malkin, one of the 3 cats. Kay shooed him away, but 3/4 of the milk had gone, and Kay would not drink what was left, because the cat had breathed in it, and Kay had heard that a cat's breath always gave you consumption. He went into the garden without milk or biscuit. Before he could settle down to any game, he was called indoors to wash his hands, and then to put on a Sunday collar ready for Sir Theopompus. He loathed Sir Theopompus, a stout, red-faced man with eyes staring out of his head as though he were at the point of choking. The worst of Sir Theopompus's coming was that there was always a lovely dinner, but no contentment therewith, only the scowl of Sylvia Daisy if he did anything wrong. Presently, Sir Theopompus arrived in his fluttery way, with his gold-rimmed spectacles, his umbrella with the gold band, and his gold watch and chain. The governess presented her reports, but mercifully never said anything about the Latin adjective. Sir Theopompus didn't say much to Kay, happily, but from time to time would ask some question, such as, "Are you enjoying your history? Got as far as the first Reform Bill yet? And what is your opinion of Lord Palmerston as a statesman, eh?" Then, after some more talk and another helping of goose, he would switch on to geography. "Know all about latitude and longitude, eh? What latitude are you in now, do you suppose?" Towards the end of dinner, when he was shiny with his lunch, Sir Theopompus asked, "And what are you going to be, my young man? Got any plans yet?" "I was rather hoping that I could be a jockey," Kay said timidly. A look of displeasure came upon Miss Sylvia Daisy's face. "Not thinking of being a sailor like your great-grandpapa?" Sir Theopompus said. "Do you know about your great-grandpapa?" "Yes, I know something," Kay said. "Oh, and what do you know?" said the governess very sweetly. "He was a sea captain," Kay said, "and went a lot to the West Indies and Santa Barbara." "Yes," Sir Theopompus broke in, "and he took away the Santa Barbara treasure, worth about £1,000,000 or something, and his crew mutinied, put him ashore, and ran away with it. Pretty pickings for a crew of seamen. Of course, some say," Sir Theopompus added as he rose from his chair, "some say that your great-grandpapa brought that treasure home with him and hid it somewhere. Have you come upon any treasure in your grubbings?" "No," Kay said. "Well, I'll tell you what I'll do," Sir Theopompus said. "If you'll find that treasure and tell me where it is, I'll go an honest halves with you." "But it wouldn't be an honest halves," Kay said, "because you'd have done none of the work, and all the treasure belongs to the Santa Barbara priests." "Oh, so that's the line you're going on," Sir Theopompus said. "Now you cut, for I've got to talk business here." Kay went out into the garden and amused himself until tea-time, wondering what the two could find to talk about, though he supposed that it was mostly about himself. Tea was very early, although lunch had been so late because Sir Theopompus had to catch the 4:30. Tea, with Sir Theopompus there, was a dismal function in the drawing-room, with the tea-set known as the Lowestoft, and the stiff rosewood chairs which Kay was to be sure not to scratch. "Well, have you found the treasure, eh?" Sir Theopompus asked. Kay said that he had not. "It seems to me," Sir Theopompus said, "that you're making this young man something of a moony. When I was a young fellow, by George, the thought of treasure would have set me going, I know. Don't you want to find it, eh?" "Everybody says that it was never here, sir," Kay said. "Oh, no," Sir Theopompus answered, "but a good many say that it was here, and is here somewhere. Those West India merchants were a pretty odd lot of fellows, if you ask me. A lot of piracy and slaving going on there. I dare say your great-grandpapa was no better than his time, and £1,000,000 is a big temptation in the path of a man who's been just a merchant skipper." "Sir, he was a very good man," Kay said. "His portrait is in the schoolroom." "Well, he was a very good man, was he?" Sir Theopompus said. "He didn't bring back the treasure that he was trusted with. We know what to call men of that stamp in the city, by George." The day had been full of contrariety. Now something in the day and in Sir Theopompus combined to Kay's ruin. "Well, I don't care," he said. "You oughtn't to condemn a man who isn't here to answer." "By George," Sir Theopompus said, "we shall have to put you into Parliament." He went rather turkey-cocky about the gills, snorted, and said that he had to catch his train. When the wheels of the fly had scrunched along the gravel out of the gate, the governess turned upon him. "What a very impertinent little boy you are, Kay," she said. Not only to me this morning, but to your kind guardian, who has come here specially and solely to see how you are getting on. It would have done you good if he had boxed your ears soundly and sent you packing." "I don't care," Kay said. "He oughtn't to have said that about great-grandpapa Harker, because it isn't true." "You are a wicked little boy, Kay," the governess said. "You will go straight to bed this minute, without your bread and milk." The little boy went upstairs to his room, in the old part of the house. There were oak beams in the ceiling. The floor was all oak plank. The bed was big and old, valanced to the floor and topped by a canopy. Kay was very much afraid of it at going to bedtime, because so many tigers could get underneath it to wait till he was asleep. But tonight he did not mind, because it was still only sunset. He had 2 windows in his room. One looked out on a garden, where Nibbins, the black cat, was watching some birds. The other looked out over a field where there was a sheep trough. He did not like the look of the trough in the long grass, because it looked so like a puma with its ears cocked. Beyond the field he could see the stable where Benjamin the highwayman had once lived. Now in his room there were 2 doors leading to different passages, which was terrible after dark, because of footsteps. On the wall were 2 coloured prints, the meat and full cry, one on each side of the fireplace. Over the wash-hand stand, as it was called, were 2 old pistols wired to nails. They were called Great-Grandpapa Harker's pistols, and Kay was to be sure never to touch them, because they might go off. Then on the other side of the room there was the dressing-table, valanced to the floor, which made a very good secret room where nobody ever looked for you. In the corner, near this, on a shelf on the wall, stood an old model of a ship, which Kay was never to touch, because boys are so destructive. This was the model of Great-Grandpapa Harker's ship, the Plunderer, which had disappeared with the missing treasure so long before. A very terrible thing about the fireplace was the stone hearth. "As big as 3 men could lift," Jane said. Ellen said that a stone like that was a sure sign that somebody had been murdered and buried there, and that if Kay wasn't a good boy, he would come out and warn him. Cook said once she had seen him come out, and he was all in black, which was a sure sign. "And he wanted to speak," she said, "only it wasn't his time." This night the rooks were very noisy at their going to roost. The peacocks were screaming, and the brook at the end of the garden could be heard. "It's going to rain," Kay thought. He lingered over his undressing, because he hoped that Ellen or Jane would smuggle him some bread and milk when the governess went to supper. But it was Ellen's evening alone, when she always did her ironing, and Jane was out. By and by the sun went down behind the wooded camp known as King Arthur's Round Table, where King Arthur was supposed to ride at full moon. When the sun had gone, all the world glowed for a while, but it was not wise to wait till the glow had gone, because so soon the dusk began, when the owls would come, and the footsteps would begin, and the tigers would stir under the bed and put out their paws, and the scratchings would scrape under the floor. He knew that he had not been good, and that he might come out and warn him. He got into the bed with a leap, because then you dodged the paws. He got well under the clothes for a minute, to make sure that he was not pursued. Luckily, none of the tigers had heard him. The worst of it was that tigers look out for wicked little boys. When Kay came from under the bedclothes, he could not be sure that there was not a tiger lying in the canopy above him. It was sagged down, just as though a tiger were there. If it were to give way, the tiger would fall right on top of him. Or very likely it was not a tiger, but a python, for that is what pythons do. Now it became darker, so that he could see a few stars. Footsteps passed in the house, sometimes close to his door, so that gleams of candlelight crossed the ceiling. Very strange creakings sounded in the house. There were scutterings to and fro, and scraping scratchings. By and by he heard the governess, who had finished her supper, come to the room beneath him, the library, as she usually did in the evenings. He was cross with her for stopping his bread and milk, but glad that she was there. She opened the piano and began to play. Usually she played things without any tune, which she said he couldn't understand yet because they were classical. This night she played something that had a sort of tune, and then began to sing to it in a very beautiful voice, so that he was rapt away at once into joy. There were not any more tigers nor pythons, only a mouse gnawing in the wainscot. Or was it someone playing on a guitar and humming some song about a treasure? After a time, he did not think that it was a guitar, but a voice calling to him. "Kay! Kay, wake up!" Waking up, he rubbed his eyes. It was broad daylight, but no one was there. Someone was scraping and calling inside the wainscot, just below where the pistols hung. There was something odd about the daylight. It was brighter than usual. All things looked more real than usual. "Can't you open the door, Kay?" the voice asked. There never had been a door there, but now that Kay looked, there was a little door, all studded with knops of iron. Just as he got down to it, it opened towards him. There was Nibbins, the black cat. "Come along, Kay," Nibbins said. "We can just do it while they're at the banquet, but don't make any more noise than you must." Kay peeped through the door. It opened from a little narrow passage in the thickness of the wall. "Where does it lead to?" he asked. "Come and see," Nibbins said. Kay slipped on his slippers and followed Nibbins into the little passage. Nibbins closed the door behind him and bolted it. "I'll lead the way," he said. "Mind the stairs, they're a bit worn, for the smugglers used to use these passages, but there's lots of light. Take my paw as we go up." They went up some stairs in the thickness of the wall. Then a panel slid up in front of them, and they came out onto the top landing. Nibbins closed the panel behind them. It was dark night there on the landing, except for a little moonlight. The house was very still, but looking down over the banisters into the hall, Kay thought that he saw a shadow wearing a ruff and a long sword standing in the moonlight. The cuckoo clock in the nursery struck 12. "All the house is sound asleep," Nibbins said. "Jane and Ellen are in there, in those 2 rooms. They little know what goes on among us midnight folk. Give us a hand with this ring bolt, will you?" In the oak planks of the floor, there was a trap door, which Kay had never seen before. Together they pulled it up. Beneath was a ladder leading down into a passage brightly lit like the other. "Close the trap after you," Nibbins said as he went down. They went along a passage into a little room, all hung with swords and banners. "This is the guard room," Nibbins said. "Some of the swords are still here. The guards went away a long time ago. Least said, soonest mended. It's not for me to blame anybody. There are their names cut on the wall." Kay read some of the names. Robin Pointnose, Eduardo da Vinci, Salado da Vinci, Bruno Brie, Snowball, G.L. Brown Bear, Dog, P-Dog, Jack, Peterkin, James, Squirrel, Peter Horse, Tom, John, Lender, Peter Gillian, William Brown, Ernest, Jemima, Maria, Susan, Peter. Alas, Kay knew those names only too well. They were the names of his beloved companions of old, before there had been any governess or Sir Theopompus. They had been his toys, of bears, dogs, rabbits, cats, horses and boys. They had all been packed away long ago when the governess came, because, as he had heard her tell Ellen, they will only remind him of the past. They were locked up somewhere, he thought, yet he often feared that they had been given away to other children who would not know them or be kind to them. "Why do you call them guards, Nibs?" he asked. "Why, because they were the guards," Nibbins said. "I told them they ought not to go, but Edward said that he'd got a clue and had to follow it up." "What had he got a clue to?" Kay asked. "The Harker treasure," he said. "I begged him to leave half the guards, but he said, 'No, I'll only be away a week or 2. So away they went, with the horse and cart, the big tent that takes to pieces, and all the hammocks and guns. Edward had his sword, the cocked hat, the coat with the piping, and his striped trousers, so you can see that he thought it important. But as to his being away only a week, he has been away a year or more, and not a word has come from any of them." "I'm afraid they're all dead," Kay said. "I wish they weren't." "Things have gone to rack and ruin without them," Nibbins said. "What with witchcraft and that. Of course, I'm only a cat, but I've got eyes, and a cat can look at a king. Still, least said, soonest mended. Now, come along this way, down these steps. Now, do you see these eye holes?
They are cut in the portraits on the walls of one of the rooms. You can look down if you like.
Kay looked down through the eye-holes of Grandmamma Harker's portrait in the drawing-room, which was shuttered dark except for some moonlight coming from the upper panes. This moonlight fell upon the table, where the red and white ivory chessmen were playing chess by themselves. They had come out of the box and ranged themselves. The kings called out the moves, but generally they asked the queens first. The pieces and pawns which had been taken stood beside the board, giving cheers for their own sides and uttering little cries of warning.
"Well played, Red!"
"Now, White Knight, why don't you take him?"
"Oh, your Majesty, look out for the bishop!"
"Oh, well played, your grace, well played indeed."
"That'll be mate in 3 moves if you do that, Red."
"Will it really?" "Oh, yes, my dear, I suppose it will. I'd better not do it, then. What would you suggest?" etc. While Kay was watching, Nibbins put a paw on his arm.
"Don't speak," he said. "Mrs. Pouncer is going to sing. Come along quietly. You'll enjoy this."
He led Kay along a narrow corridor into another passage, where there were more eyelet holes. Kay looked through the eyes of Great-Grandmamma Siskin's portrait into the dining-room. But what did he see? There were 7 old witches in tall black hats and long scarlet cloaks sitting round the table at a very good supper. The cold goose and chine, which had been hot at middle-day dinner, and the plum cake, which had been new for tea. They were very piggy in their eating, picking the bones with their fingers, etc., and they had almost finished the masala. The old witch who sat at the head of the table tapped with her crooked-headed stick and removed her tall pointed hat. She had a hooky nose and chin and very bright eyes.
"Dear Pouncer is going to sing to us,"
another witch said.
"Hear, hear,"
the other witches said.
"Dear Pouncer, sing. But you must join in the chorus, sisters. Shall it be the old song, dear Nightshade?" "Yes, yes, the old song."
Mrs. Pouncer cleared her throat and began. "When the midnight strikes in the belfry dark and the white goose quakes at the fox's bark, we saddle the horse that is hayless, oatless, hoofless and pranceless, kickless and coatless. We canter off for a midnight prowl. Chorus, dear sisters! Woo, 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 says the hook-eared owl." All the witches put back their heads to sing the chorus. Woo, 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 says the hook-eared owl. It seemed to Kay that they were looking straight at him. Nibbins's eyes gleamed with joy.
"I can't resist this song," he said. "I never could. It was this song, really, that got me into this way of life."
"But I don't know what it means. What is the horse that is hayless?"
"Aha," Nibbins said. "Well, we've time while they're at this song. It has 9 times 9 verses, but you ought to stay for some more woo-hoos. Doesn't it give you the feel of the moon in the treetops? Woo-hoo-hoo, says the hook-eared owl. Come along quietly."
Nibbins led the way up some more stairs till he came to an open door, through which Kay saw the stars.
"Why, this is the roof," he said.
He saw how strange the roof was, close to like this, with the twisted brick chimneys standing guard, with their cowls still spinning. He seemed very far from the ground.
"This is what they mean," Nibbins said. "Just open that middle chimney, will you?"
"But it's a chimney. It won't open."
"No, it isn't. There's a bobbin on it. Pull that. It's their stable."
Kay scrambled up to the middle chimney of the 3 nearest to him. Sure enough, there was a bobbin on it. He pulled it. The latch came up. The chimney opened like a door. There, inside, was a cupboard in which stood 1 besom, 1 stable broom, 1 straw broom, 1 broom, and 3 kitchen brooms, each with a red headstall marked with magic.
"Take the besom and the broom," Nibbins said, "and pitch the others over the gutter."
Kay pitched the 5 over the gutter. They whinnied as they fell onto the garden path, but nobody seemed to notice.
"Now, let us mount and ride," Nibbins said. "But first, we'll shut the door."
He was going to shut the door into the house when the noise of the song suddenly became much louder. Somebody at the banquet said, "Hush!" Suddenly, the singing stopped. The witches were holding their door open, listening.
"They've heard us," Nibbins said. "Mount, Kay, and ride. Mount, catch him by the bridle, say, 'Cesar,' and point him where you want to go. Watch me."
Nibbins mounted the besom, Kay the broom. Just as he was mounted, he heard the sharp voice of Mrs. Pouncer calling from the foot of the stairs.
"Night glider tell, Are ill things well?
Kay saw the besom toss up its head. It began to say, "Save, mistress, save, from white thief and black knave." But before he could finish, both Nibbins and Kay said "Sa-sa," and pointed their horses toward the wood. Kay heard the witches clattering up the stairs on their high-heeled shoes. Looking back, he saw them all clustered on the roof, shaking their fists and sticks. But already they were far away, for the two broom horses were rushing through the air so fast that soon the house was out of sight. As they went over the elm boughs, they came so close to the top twigs that some young rooks woke in the rookery and cried "Caw!" at them. It was merry to be so high in the air. Kay could see the village with hardly a light in it, and the flashing of the brook where it went over the fall. Near the ponds, many little lights were twinkling. Kay wondered what they could be. A couple of white owls drifted up alongside Kay like moths. He could see their burning yellow eyes. "We'll race you to the upper wood," they said. "All right," Kay said. "Come up, horse." The brooms were much faster than the owls. Soon they were well ahead. "You keep clear of Wicked Hill," the owls cried. They said something more, but the brooms were too far in front for the riders to hear. "We'll land here, if you don't mind," Nibbin said. "I'd like to speak with a friend, if he's anywhere about. Point his head down to the quarry there." When they had landed in the quarry, they tied the brooms to two spindle trees. "It must be spindle trees," Nibbin said. The quarry was bright in the moonlight, and much overgrown with hazels and gorse. "What is Wicked Hill?" Kay asked, "that we are to keep clear of?" "They told us to keep clear of it, did they?" Nibbin said. "That shows that there's something on. However, this is where my friend lives, if he's not on his rounds." He led the way towards the quarry end, where there was much tumbled stone worn into a track by feet. A warm, strong scent was blowing about the place, more like a taste than a smell. The ground was white with little bones. Something that looked like washing hung upon the gorse bushes. It was not washing, though. It was rabbit skins hung up to dry. Someone with a most unpleasant voice was doing something with the rabbit skins and singing as he worked. He was either folding the dry ones or hanging more fresh. His song was not a nice one.
I crept out of covert, and what did I see? Ow, 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 diddle, ow. But 7-foot bunnies each waiting for me with a poacher's noose. He catch the fat goosey, ho, says Rollick and bite 'em. Oh, pretty bunnies, let's come for a stroll. Oh, no, 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 you're a fox. A fox, pretty dears, can't you see I'm a mole? With a weasley stoaty snap at his throaty, ho, says Rollick and bite 'em. Let's dance one by one, arm in arm as dear friends. Oh, certainly, sir, if you please. So 7 fat bunnies had 7 sweet ends. Hey for a general snug in my general, ho, says Rollick and bite 'em.
The song stopped suddenly. Kay heard no sound of footsteps, but suddenly 2 very bright green eyes were shining at him above some glittering teeth.
"It's all right, Bite 'em, old boy," Nibbin said. "It's only Nibs. This is my friend Kay. Mr. Kay, Mr. Lightfoot, Mr. Rollicum Bite'em Lightfoot. Oh, it's you, Nibs. Pleased to meet you, Mr. Kay. Come in, won't you? Sorry I didn't recognise you at once. This way."
He led the way to what looked like the mouth of a cave in the quarry face.
"It'll be dark for you," he said to Kay. "You'll find some glowworms on the shelf there if you want a light."
Kay took a glowworm from the shelf. By the light of this, he was able to see where he was going. The 2 others went down the passage in front of him. It was a rough, dark, narrow passage with many twists in it. Everywhere there was this strong, rich scent, so like a taste. There were many rabbit skins about, as well as feathers.
"Mr. Bite'em deals in game," Nibbin said. "I have to consult him about some rabbiting."
Mr. Bite'em led them into his study, which was also his bedroom and larder.
"Bachelor's quarters," he said. "A bit rough and ready, but then I'm only here in the winter, really. Would you care to pick a wing or anything? No? There's some nice fowl cold, and there's a bit of dock under the floor there. No? Well, what do you want with me, Nibs?" "About our rabbiting tomorrow night, Bite'em. Of course, you can speak freely before Mr. Kay. I rather think my cousin Black Malkin has betrayed us to the keeper. I happened to see him come from the keeper's cottage. I was up in a tree among some ivy. He came out licking his lips, for he'd been having milk. He didn't see me. He passed just underneath me, but I heard him chuckle to himself and say, 'Keeper will get the lot of them.' You see, Kay, my two cousins, Black Malkin and Grey Malkin, and myself, have been in this midnight business together for quite a long time. Well, lately, we've been helping Bytum in the game industry, on quiet nights after New Moon and so on, and we had planned a big hunt for tomorrow, out Coneycop Spinney way. A really big hunt. Ourselves, Bytum, and some of his relatives. Now, Black Malkin has not been dependable for a long time. This magic business is very bad for a fellow, and he's in it deeply with a very bad set, all the Pouncer 7. You mark my words, he's been put up by the 7 to betray us to the keeper. When he had gone, I crept down from my tree, got into the keeper's cottage, and upstairs under the bed. Presently, Keeper came in with those nasty dogs of his and put his gun on the rack. "I've got some news for you, my dear," his wife said. "Here's Black Malkin just coming to say that there's a big rabbit drive arranged for Friday night in the Spinney. That Bytum lot and his cousins are in it." "I'll rabbit 'em," Keeper said. You know his coarse red way. "I'll rabbit 'em." "Yes, my dear," his wife said. "Black Malkin said you'd get the lot of them. Of course, after what he'd told me, I gave him some milk and that bit of sardine that there was." "Quite right," Keeper said. "If I get the lot of them, he shall have more than milk and sardine. He shall have Longtail's wing." "Oh, hush, my dear," his wife said. "Somebody might hear you." "Tut, nobody can hear me," Keeper said, blowing out his big lips. "But I'll rabbit 'em. Let 'em come on Friday. I'll ask no better." Then he went out and began oiling his gun. I could hear him singing. "I'll get him oil for Friday, so it shall be their day, and Saturday shall be batter day, and Sunday hot rabbit pie day." I had to wait in the room for hours, because his nasty dogs were in the room below. But at last I could stand it no longer. I made a dart for the chimney, and was over the roof and into the pines before the dogs were upstairs. I heard Keeper ask, "What's the matter with the dogs?" And his wife said, "It sounded like a young jackdaw got down the chimney again." "I'll jackdaw them jackdaws one of these days," he said, "if they keep on jackdawing me." "That's that," she said. "So that was that, and here I am." "Ha," Bytum said. "So that's that for tomorrow's hunt. Now what can we do for Black Malkin? Of all the traitors I ever did hear of. But we'll pretend we're going up to the last. Keeper and the beaters will all be at Coneycop waiting for us, and we'll send Black Malkin there. But we ourselves will go off and draw out Brady Rideway. There's pretty toothing in the rabbit there, especially in South Warren. And Keeper and beaters will wait all night for us at Coneycop. And when they learn that we've been at Brady, they'll pretty well have it out of Black Malkin for misleading them. They'll toss him in a game bag and serve him right." "I say, you have got a brain, Bytum," Nibbin said. "I knew you'd have a plan at once. That's the advantage of working with you. Never at a loss. I never saw such a fellow." "The fellow had need to be never at a loss," Bytum said. "The huntsmen are bad enough in their red coats, but at least you do expect a keeper to stand your friend." "If you wouldn't mind just moving to the door, Kay," Nibbin said, "Bytum and I could plan out our hunt a bit, using the floor as a map." Kay moved to the door. He watched them as they put rabbit skins and feathers on the ground to mark places in the wood. He listened to them for a few minutes. "This hen's head is the big U. That rabbit skin is the boggy patch. You know the place. Then here is where we got the partridge chicks. I'll put this pheasant's tail to mark the end of the South Warren. Hob Ferret will join in here, and Jill will come if we want her. Then you will steal up here, and I will steal up there. Yes, and then Grey Malkin is awfully good at a drop pounce. Then we'll all go over the down to North Warren." Kay grew weary of all this talk, because he had never been to Brady Ride Wood. He strolled quietly along the passage towards its mouth in the quarry face. He put back the glowworm on the ledge and peeped out of the entrance. He drew back at once, because there, in the quarry, not far from the cave, was a man at work among the stones. He was kneeling in a patch of shadow, but his face came up into the moonlight from time to time. Kay saw from his velveteen coat that it was the keeper. What on earth is he doing? Kay wondered. Presently the keeper stood up to stretch his back. He was wearing gloves. He drew from a sack a big iron snap trap, which he opened and set among the stones in the middle of the path leading to Bytum's earth. When it was set,
he very cleverly and cautiously strewed it over with moss, dead grass, leaves and earth.
"That'll catch your light feet, Mr. Lightfoot," he said, "and then with my good gun I'll put an end to your snibbing of my rabbits. Many a young hunter will give £1 for that mask of yourn, and your brush shall be a cobweb cleaner before you're a week older. I'll get up my tree, my master, and watch till you walk click into it. You'll be coming home within an hour. I know your ways."
Kay saw him move into the wood above the quarry, where he began to climb a tree. As soon as he was climbing, Kay hurried back to tell the others what he had seen.
"A trap," Bytum said, "and keep her watching from a tree. I am very much obliged to you, Mr. Kay. I must be gone from here by the secret door. I'll move off to my place Wicked Hill way." "There's something on at Wicked Hill," the owl said, Nibbin said. "Do you think it would be safe?" "A lot safer than this," Bytum said.
"Yes, for you," Nibbin said, "but I meant for us.
They don't harm anyone who keeps outside the magic circle."
"I'd love to go just to look on," Nibbin said. "It's probably a big magic night, Kay, when they have a bonfire, and oh, I do love to see them at magic. It's terrifying, but I can't resist it."
"Well, come along," Bytum said.
"We can steal round to our horses and give you a lift, Bytum."
The fox led the way out of his study into a narrow passage, where Kay had to crawl on hands and knees. This led into a biggish room from which several passages branched. Water was dripping in one of them.
"Very convenient in here," Bytum said. "Lots of ways out and plenty of water. But this is the way we'll take tonight."
In a few minutes they scrambled out among some gorse roots, at least 100 yards from the keeper, near the spindle trees where the brooms were tethered.
"You mount with me, Bytum," Nibbin said, "and you, Kay, just follow us. There are spindles where we can tether, lots of them."
In a moment, the brooms were sweeping through the air over the treetops. Kay saw a few white houses here and there below him, and many gleaming ponds and brooks. Far ahead among the hills was the glow of a bonfire. Soon they could see people dancing round it. Kay came to ground with Nibbins and Bytum beside a spinney on the hill. There were many spindle bushes in the spinney, but to many of them brooms were already tethered.
"I'll be off to my place," Bytum said, "over there among the old ones. You'll find the night folk up at the top. Good night."
Wicked Hill was a big round lump with a hollow top. The lower slopes grew bracken and bramble, but near the top nothing grew except a short-bladed grass. The stump of an old gibbet stood at one end of it. An earthwork with 2 gates ringed the top of the hill. On the top of this earthwork, the magic circle was burning in a narrow line of blue fire, which was being fed by little black cats who walked round the ring dropping herbs on it.
"That used to be my job when I did this kind of thing," Nibbins whispered.
The bonfire, which had now sunk to a glow, was in the midst of the circle. The people who had danced about it were now drawn together in a group. They were listening to a wizard in a long scarlet gown who seemed to be their king or chief.
"That's Abner Brown," Nibbins whispered. "He's always the head of these big parties." "Hush," Kay said. "Let's hear what he's saying."
"So, my brothers and sisters," Abner was saying, "we have had our evening's frolic. Now let us come to our evening's business. The great task before us is to find the Harker treasure." Here there were cries of, "Hear, hear!" We all know what that was. It was the treasure of the great South American Cathedral of Santa Barbara. It was a barge load of gold, silver, and precious stones, wrought and unwrought, but worth, so the records prove, at least £1,700,000. There are 7 times 7 of us. If we find it, the share of each one of us will be some £35,000. I ask you, is it worth trying to find? There were loud cries of yes. You say yes, and you may mean yes, but will you all work for yes? There were shouts of yes to the death. Very well then, he said. I am glad that we are all resolved. We will now break up our party. Let all the 7s leave the hill, except the Pouncer 7. When most of the party had gone,
Kay saw that Mrs. Pouncer, Sister Nightshade, and the rest of the 7 drew near to Abner.
"Sister Pouncer," Abner said, "why are you vexed?" "Enemies are at work," she said. "They took my broom and Nightshade's broom, so that we had to walk." "Do not be vexed, my Pouncer," Abner said, "because I am far from vexed. I have discovered something very important about the treasure."
"Oh? What, dear Abner?"
"You are quite wrong about it. It is not in the Harker home, but somewhere near here."
At this there came cries of, "No, it cannot be! How can it be? Where do you suppose it is? Why is it not in the Harker house? Where is it?"
"We will find out that presently," he said, "of where it is. Listen to what I have to say of whereabouts it is."
The 7 drew nearer, intently listening.
"You know," Abner went on, "that when I was little, I helped my father and grandfather, both of them Abner Browns like myself, to look for the treasure. I might say I was at this quest from birth."
Here there were remarks of, "Hear, hear!"
"As you know, my grandfather once had the treasure, but lost it. For more than 20 years, he and my father dug for it where they thought it would be. One of my earliest recollections is of helping them to dig for it in a hot country of very red mud. Then my grandpop disappeared, and within a week my pop died of the yellow fever. I had the harsh world to wrestle with before I could take up the quest. When I took it up, just 30 years after those 2 laid it down, it wasn't easy to pick up the threads at that place in the red mud. The yellow fever had killed most everyone who had lived there when my pop and grandpop dug there. But I met an old Negro who knew just why my grandpop gave up digging and disappeared. He gave up digging because someone found the treasure and carried it off to sea. He disappeared so as to settle matters with that finder. The finder was an Englishman named Benito Trigger. That is not much to go upon, is it? 35 years ago, an Englishman gets to sea with the stuff 3,000 miles away and disappears. My grandpop goes after him and disappears. At first, I thought that this Benito Trigger might be Captain Harker himself, for as we know, he lived for many years in quest of the treasure.
Or pretended to, so as to lull suspicion while he lived on it, Mrs. Pouncer said under her breath.
But it was not Captain Harker, Abner continued. For when I came here to make inquiries, I found that Captain Harker was at that time upon his deathbed. I need not tell you how interesting it was to see the very house in which old Captain Harker lived, and to see his tomb, and to stand within just a few feet of those bones which, when they were alive, had started all this treasure hunt. For the moment, I ruled him out. "You didn't get the treasure, brother," I said. "You were in your tomb before it could have reached England, if it ever did reach England."
"It was in his secret den before he ever sickened," Mrs. Pouncer muttered. "Of course he had it all the time."
"But," Abner continued, "I fell right plumb in love with this green countryside, so full of real old buildings. So I just didn't rest till I'd taken Russell's Dean, that Queen Anne mansion in the Oakwood, where tradition says the Druids once practised their rites. There, as you know, we have been able to establish our magic circle for the quest of the treasure, upon the lines of the ancient knowledge. And there are red birds that come out of the wilderness with knowledge. One of them came to me this spring, just after I was settled in Russell's Dean. He led me to visit a certain church not many miles from here. And what did I find there?"
Here some of the 7 said,
"The treasure? Some of the candlesticks? The church vessels in use again?"
"No, none of those things," he answered. "I found the tomb of my long-lost grandpop, Abner Brown. He had been drowned in the great flood here in February 1850, February Filldyke, as you call it. Was not that wonderful? I have now raked out something of his end. He was last seen alive at the Condicut Inn, the Ring of Bells, on the last night of January 1850. He was then heard quarrelling. With whom? With Sir Piney Trigger, a rich Honduras merchant who had just returned from 2 years' absence in the West. That piney trigger was the trigger who had found the treasure and carried it off to sea. My grandpop had run him down. That night, after their quarrel, both my grandpop and Sir Piney disappeared. What happened, do you suppose? Many asked that at the time. I answer it. I say that Sir Piney had the treasure here, that my grandpop had discovered so much and asked for a share. They quarrelled. I say that Sir Piney flung my grandpop into the flood and then fled the country. Left the country, left the treasure, and never dared come back for it because of blood guiltiness. The case is reported in the Condicate Remembrancer for February 1850. They knew nothing of any treasure, of course, only inquired into the disappearance. The coroner's jury supposed him to have been washed out to sea by the great flood. Now, Sir Piney was a well-known sportsman mixed up in many shady matters. His daughter is still alive. I have seen her. There is no getting anything out of her. What I have tried to find out is what brought him to Condicate that night. In the coroner's notes, I found this, that it was supposed that he had come to look after a big barge of his which had come up the river some days before. It was a sea-going barge, fitted like a yacht. He had been in her in the west. I say that he brought the treasure in her. He hid it somewhere not far from Condicate, and had come to see it, or to remove it, when my grandpop interfered. Here, as Abner paused, as though for applause, Sister Nightshade asked, "May he not have taken all the treasure away in the barge when he took himself away?" "No," Abner said, "because the barge, dead empty, had been washed ashore and stove in the floods 2 days before he disappeared. No, my sweet Seven, depend upon it, the treasure is near here, and somewhere here, probably near the river, we'll find it." Here there was a sensation among the company. All were much impressed and excited. Sister Pouncer said, "Was there ever such a mind as our Abner's, like crystal from the spring?" But after saying this, she moved nearer to Kay and muttered, "This is all pure surmise. You have a bee in your bonnet, my good sir. I, too, have my views of where the treasure is, and we shall see who is right. Magic is a surer guide than a grand pop or a little pop. For all your tingo and tango, Sister Pouncer holds the silken clue." "And now, my dear Seven," Abner continued, "we will have one short dance more, and then away, for the stars are dim and the cocks are stirring on their perches. Join hands and dance." A strange music began from somewhere in the air. The witches and wizards at once swept into a dance. Nibbins was very uneasy. "I can't keep out of a dance like this," he said. "Oh, it goes right through my marrow. And then in a minute they will all join hands and swing round and round till they see all sorts of things." "You come away," Kay said, pulling him down the hill. "You always were one for getting into scrapes. Let's get back home before they all come hurrying for their horses. If Mrs. Pouncer catches us at the spindle trees, we shall be in a mess." He made Nibbins run, keeping one hand on the scruff of his neck all the way, lest the sound of the dance should prove too exciting. In a few minutes they were high in the air again upon their horses, sailing far from the hill. "It's just as well we started when we did," Nibbins said, "for there's the dawn beginning." Sure enough, the sky behind them was showing colour. The 2 horses began to droop down towards the ground. Presently they were dragging along the ground, and at last they collapsed. "We left it till too late," Nibbins said. "However, we're almost at home. Come along. The gate's locked, but we can get over the wall by the ivy." They left their horses in the road, scrambled up the ivy, over the wall, and then along behind the Laurestinus till they were near the house. "This is the place," Nibbins said. They were within 30 yards of the house in a thick shrubbery, but Nibbins must have touched a spring, for the ground gave way beneath them, and down they went into a secret passage. In another minute, Nibbins was gone, and Kay was in his own room. "What a night I have had," he thought. His slippers were muddy from the soil in the garden. "I shall catch it," he thought. The cuckoo clock struck 5. The room was quite light. He popped into bed at once. He did not stay long awake, you may be sure.
Just before he fell asleep, however, he heard a curious noise on the wall of the house, not far away, as though the jasmine had broken away and was scraping as the wind blew it. "I suppose it's the jasmine," he muttered drowsily. "But it may be Ellen up already, sweeping the stairs." When he came downstairs to breakfast, the governess was not down. She entered just as he was at the sideboard helping himself to pork pie. She looked a little cross, as though she had not slept very well. "You know," she said, "that you're never allowed to help yourself to pork pie. It's a very bilious, rich food, and then you won't be able to do your French. You must have an egg like any other boy. And you don't mean to say, Kay, after all the many times that I've spoken to you, that you've been in the garden again in your slippers, and on the beds too. And then you wonder if you catch your death of cold." "But I haven't caught a cold," he said. "Don't answer me back, sir," she said. "You're a very naughty, disobedient little boy, and I have a very good mind not to let you have an egg. I wouldn't let you have an egg, only I had to stop your supper last night. Take off one of those slippers and let me feel it. Come here." Kay went up rather gingerly, having been caught in this way more than once. He took off one slipper and tendered it for inspection. "Just as I thought," she said. "The damp has come right through the lining, and that's the way your stockings get worn out." In a very pouncing way, she spanked at his knuckles with the slipper. He had expected a blow of the sort, and by drawing his hands swiftly aside, the slipper struck the spoons on the table and made them dance. "Now, you naughty boy, put that slipper on, and you'll learn the whole of pouvoir before you go out this morning. What were you muttering under your breath, Kay?" "I was just wondering if this was a duck egg or a hen egg." "Use the subjunctive and the genitive," she said. "Were a duck's egg, not was a duck egg. And it's a hen's egg. Duck's eggs are a great deal too rich." At any other time, Kay would have boasted that it was a double yolker, but refrained, thinking that this would probably lead to confiscation as too much for a young stomach. He ate his egg, but his mind was intent upon many other things. Ellen came in. "If you please, ma'am," Ellen said, "would you mind speaking to Jane?" Jane was at the door behind her. "If you please, ma'am," Jane said, "would you please to look at this?" This was the dish on which the cold goose had lain, but alas, now nothing remained but a few picked bones and a skeleton almost bare. "The cats have been in again, ma'am. I don't know how they get in, and the chine's gone the same way, and there's 2 more brooms gone. Did you lock the larder door, Jane?" "Yes, ma'am, and I took the key and had it under my pillow. And if it isn't cats, and I don't know how cats get in, then somebody must have a key and come in the night, and I don't like it." "I'll look into this after breakfast, Jane," the governess said, "and I'll speak to Wiggins." Kay stared at the bones of the goose. He knew how that goose and chine had disappeared. Almost immediately, Jane reappeared. "If you please, ma'am, Wiggins has found the 2 brooms, the besom and the broom. They were in the road outside, near the spring." "But how on earth could they have got there?" the governess said. "I don't know how they got there," Jane said, "but I don't like it." The governess did not talk during breakfast, but seemed to be considering this question of the brooms and the goose. Kay's thoughts were far away with Nibbins, Mr. Bytham, and that gathering of witches on the hill. "Of all the dreamy boys," the governess said suddenly, "going off into daydreams, it's my belief that you need a dose. It's my belief you eat too much. You'll put on your boots before you come to lessons, and ask Ellen to dry those shoes in the oven." "Please, can't I wear my slippers during lessons?" "No, you won't wear your slippers during lessons. For one thing, they're not dry, and you'll catch your death wearing them. And for another, you fidget me distracted by rubbing one slipper off and then the other, just as though you were playing a game with them." This was a cruel thrust, because Kay did play games with them. When he had scraped off a slipper, he could push it about with his toes, and imagine that it was a canoe full of redskins on the warpath going down the rapids, or a diving bell at Tobermory bringing up treasure from one of the ships of the Armada, or great-grandpapa Harker's ship, the Plunderer, engaging 7 French privateers, or that famous horse Lottery at various stages of the steeplechase, the prints of which hung in the study. But the boots were laced-up things that gave no solace. There they were, and there you were. The governess stalked out of the room to investigate the larder door. Ellen came in to clear away. Kay looked up at the portrait of great-grandmamma Siskin. Her eyes seemed all right. This is the loveliest time that I've ever had, Kay thought, and anything may happen. He walked slowly round the room, tapping the panelling. What are you doing, Master Kay? Ellen asked. I was just seeing if there were any secret passages, he said. Oh, there's no secret passages in here, Master Kay. What should there be secret passages for? Oh, Kay said, when people were doing murders, they always used to have them. And then smugglers had them. The smugglers were never here, Ellen said. Not in this house. Down by the river the smugglers were, so my father said. They had the mill at Seven Hatches. Oh, and by Drowned Man's Copse Way they'd a place, and at the Springs another. But they never could have come here. Your great-grandfather would never have allowed them. No, Kay said, but he would never have known. They could have crept in at night and made the passages. I don't think they could, Master Kay. Not in stone walls. After he had put on his boots, Kay went out among the laurestinas to look for that secret place where the trap-door had opened beneath his feet. 10 o'clock struck while he was still searching, but by great good fortune he got to the schoolroom before the governess arrived. It was French morning. He struggled through an exercise in Ollendorf and a little translation from Chardinal. Unfortunately, the governess would not let him translate what had seemed, at private readings, a very promising passage about an axe and skull, with a war cry of Hallelujah. She said that it was not fit for a little boy to read. Then came the dreaded moment. And now, Kay, since you are a very naughty little boy last night, and were most disobedient and dreamy this morning, you will learn pouvoir while I go to look at the larder again, now that Wiggins is here. What do you think it was that did it in the larder? He asked. You learn your lessons, she said. Never mind about what I think it was. She left him with pouvoir. Kay had a special prejudice against pouvoir. It wasn't a good, straightforward word like aimer. It was a mean and ugly word which went into peu and pu. He didn't seem to have any sense in it. He wrestled with it with each boot twisted round a leg of his chair, scraping up and down. Then, looking up, he saw great-grandpapa Harker looking down at him from his portrait over the mantelpiece. The portrait was one that he had looked at during lessons ever since lessons began. It was just great-grandpapa Harker's portrait, though it was labelled Baxter. When people were shown the schoolroom, the governess always said, "That is a Baxter." And then people said, "Really?" or "Fancy that," or "How interesting." It was the full-length portrait of a man in old-fashioned clothes. There was a sort of shrubbery behind him, and a sort of blueness behind the shrubbery. It was said to be the only full-length Baxter, as generally Baxter only did down to the knees. But now, as Kay looked, great-grandpapa Harker distinctly took a step forward, and as he did so, the wind ruffled the skirt of his coat and shook the shrubs behind him. A couple of blue butterflies, which had been upon the shrubs for 70-odd years, flew out into the room. Great-grandpapa Harker took another step forward and smiled. Now Kay could see into the shrubbery. It was just where Kay's fort now was, but the box trees had grown enormously since then, although the bullfinches were already there. Great-grandpapa Harker held out his hand and smiled again. His face, which had seemed such an old portrait kind of face, became alive and full of welcome. He seemed a fine fellow, not at all old, and very kind and good. "Well, great-grandson Kay," he said, "ne pouvez-vous pas come into the jardin avec moi?" Kay thought it odd, but it was a perfect excuse for not doing pouvoir. "I would have learned it, but great-grandpapa Harker asked me to come into the jardin avec him, so of course I thought you wouldn't mind." He smiled back at great-grandpapa Harker and said, "Oui, grand-grand-père, thank you. Je serai very glad." Great-grandpapa Harker held out both hands, and Kay jumped onto the table. From there, with a step of run, he leapt onto the top of the fender and caught the mantelpiece. Great-grandpapa Harker caught him and helped him up into the picture. Instantly, the schoolroom disappeared. Kay was out of doors, standing beside his great-grandfather, looking at the house as it was in the pencil drawing in the study, with cows in the field close to the house on what was now the lawn, the church unchanged beyond, and nearby some standard yellow roses, long since vanished, but now seemingly in full bloom. Kay did not know quite what to say, so he said, "Did the cows really come so close to the house?"
Yes, indeed. This is Sweetlips, that one is Rosemary, and the brindle is Collinette.
Kay was looking at the cows, who were all in the rich grass grazing and swishing away the flies. An amiable-looking man with a fat, pale face, a sun hat and green spectacles rose up from behind an easel among the roses.
"That will be all that I could do for today, Harker," he said, as he packed his things. "Come to think of it, you're the first full length I've done."
Kay knew somehow that this was Baxter. He watched him move off across the grass to the gate, which was not a drive gate as now, but a farm field gate, overshadowed by trees long since cut down. Kay was alone with great-grandpapa Harker in a place that was his home, but yet strangely different. So much of it was not there at all, not yet built. "Is that all the house?" he asked.
"Yes. Come in, great-grandson, and see it."
He led the way along a cobblestone path to a door, somewhere near where the dining-room door is, as Kay thought. Pear trees grew up the house here. The porch was supported by the snouts of 2 carven wooden dolphins standing on their tails.
"I brought those from Sant Eustace," great-grandpapa Harker said. "They came off the stern of a Dutch ship that was wrecked there in the great storm of 1782, the year I was born. They must have blunted some chisels to carve them. Feel how tough the wood is."
Kay felt the hard, dark wood, as close-grained as African oak. Great-grandpapa Harker opened the door into a long, rather dark, panelled room, now completely gone. There were some portraits on the wall. The man in the blue coat with white stockings, now in the best bedroom. The man in the long brown coat with the red belt, now in the hall. And the lady that looked so like a camel. As they entered, a white cockatoo, which had been sitting quietly upon her perch, rose in excitement with an open bill. An old lady was asleep in a chair. Something told Kay that when she had been younger, she had looked like a camel. The only other things that Kay recognised were the arms in coloured glass. These were in a window, whereas Kay saw them daily now in the fanlight of a door. 3 orays couped for Harker, 2 siskins proper for Siskin, 7 abales, gromolays or for Colway, and 3 arms spurty for Mind. Great-grandpapa Harker led the way out of the dining-room, which was dark, into the study, which was still darker. Too dark, as Kay thought, for anybody to read in comfort in it. It was panelled up to the ceiling and lined with books, nearly all of them little volumes bound in calfskin. They had been arranged according to size. When he looked round, having entered the room, he found that there were folios behind him.
"You see, great-grandson," he said, "these books are not really books, but a shutter."
He moved something in the wall, and a shelf of books swung away and let in a flood of light. Over the mantel was the portrait of the man in the puce coat, who was now in the hall. There was a blunderbuss up in one corner, wired to some nails, and an old harpsichord, which was now up in the box-room with so many other mouldering wrecks.
"Now, my little great-grandson," great-grandpapa Harker said, "let me look at you and talk with you. Do they still think that I stole the treasure?"
"I'm sure you didn't," Kay said.
"Many thought that I did, and that I hid it somewhere, perhaps in the floor above this room. For years I had letters from people who dared not sign their names, accusing me of stealing it. I lost it. It was trusted to me, and I lost it. And what became of it no one knows, though I think it must be sunk or scattered."
A black cat with white throat and paws, which had been ashes for 40 years, rubbed up against great-grandpapa Harker's legs, and then, springing onto the arm of his chair, watched the long-dead sparrows in the plum tree, which had been firewood a quarter of a century ago.
"You ought to know about the treasure, Kay," great-grandpapa Harker said, "for until it is restored or traced, no man of our name ought to rest. Your grandfather would not move in the matter. Your father could not. There is only you.